All right, it is 10:03. We will get started. And of course, this will be recorded for others and they can join or they can view it as we send it out. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephen Clark. I'm the President and CEO of the Mass Restaurant Association. Today, we're going to have a webinar on EIDL repayment. I can tell you that the MRA has just started going through this process in the last month, as we were also an EIDL recipient. And we're thankful for the SBA for hosting today's webinar and really the support they've had for the restaurant industry for the entire pandemic. Bob Nelson is the Massachusetts District Director, and he's always been a phone call away for our industry as we went through some of the darkest days that we've ever experienced. And I want to give a shout out to him and his agency for their incredible job they've done in getting resources out the door and the partnership that he's had with both the MRA and the state. Today, he's going to be joined by Diane Darling from his team. And she will walk us through the repayment process. I would encourage any questions to come through the Q&A, and we will moderate those behind the scenes and incorporate those as needed. I know we're at a busy time for operators in December. It's probably one of the busiest stretches of times that we're in. So thank you all for coming today. And as I mentioned, we will record this and make it available for others to see that we're not able to join us today. As I said, I would encourage the Q&A rather than the chat. And we should be done with this in about 35 to 40 minutes. It will run through the entire presentation, including questions, and allow everyone to get back to their operations. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Bob Nelson from SBA, and thank you all for joining us today.
Okay, wonderful. Diane, we lost your PowerPoint presentation, but Steve, wonderful to be with all of you this morning. We know how much restaurants were impacted with COVID and closures and needing assistance from the SBA in our program. So I just appreciate you and Jess working with the SBA and helping us to tee this up so that we could try to make sure that small businesses know about the rules and how to navigate and to know that we really are here to try to help our restaurant and all small businesses to survive. You're the fabric of our communities and we need you here. So we're going to go through this presentation pretty quick, but we certainly want to hear your questions and concerns. We're going to try to keep it to a half hour and maybe up to 45 minutes with Q&A. Depends on how robust the Q&A is. But we'll go through this pretty quick, but certainly you have myself. I'm the director of the SBA for Massachusetts. Diane Darling is a lender relations specialist who's been helping us out for the last couple and a half years. But Diane, we'll go through this presentation. You can start advancing some of the slides and we'll go to the agenda so that folks know that what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. And Bob, Eli was wondering where I was. So that's why I popped on my email there for a moment. Apologize.
No problem at all. Yeah, so what we're going to go over quickly, the COVID EIDL program, explain how you can find out about your loan details, how to make loan payments, what service center you would be working with, help with planning your payments. But the real important part of this is the FAQs and the Q&A. Which we'll spend a lot of time on. But as far as the overview of the COVID EIDL program, absolutely amazing when you think that we did $390 billion in direct working capital loans for 3.9 million small businesses across the country. And here in Massachusetts, we did over $7 billion in EIDL loans. But, at the peak, SBA was doing $1 billion and 50,000 applications per day. This is a historic program for the SBA. We're a small agency, but we were tasked with trying to save the small business economy through our recovery programs. And we did what we said we were going to do in total recovery dollars across the country with the SBA programs. Close to $1 trillion, but the COVID EIDL program, absolutely, it did go to many of the smallest of the small businesses. I know a lot of, food businesses are smaller. The average loan size was under 100,000, and 90% of these loans went to real small businesses of 10 or fewer employees. But I think this screen is real important for folks just to keep in the back of your mind as far as depending on the size of your loan and what you're looking at is the total dollar amount of the loan, not the initial loan or the increase, but what's the total dollars. But we all know that under $25,000, no personal guarantees, there's no collateral. When you go to 25,000 up to 500,000, SBA did take a secured position, a UCC filing on all business assets. SBA wasn't concerned about what position we were in. We were going to be filing a lien on business assets. And then we only took personal guarantees when the loan was over 200,000. And then when we get into over 500,000, what SBA did is we looked for business real estate. If the business had any real property, we were going to take a lien on that collateral. And again, it's best available lien. So I think this screen is important just because, if the business does get into trouble, you need to know what SBA's collateral positions and rights are. And so I think this information could be helpful for all of you. So as far as the loan repayment, this is what we're really trying to stress, that it's not going to be forgiven. This is not a PPP loan. It's not a grant. This is a debt that is owed to the federal government. SBA, for all borrowers, we did offer up to 30 months worth of payment deferments. And that 30 months is calculated based upon the original date of the note. So I know some small businesses, they might not have realized that interest accrued during the deferment period. So as soon as dollars get dispersed and out the door, the interest clock starts ticking. And so, but the beauty of this EIDL program was it provided a tremendous period of time that you didn't have to worry about making payments. We know that many small businesses and restaurants in particular, you were closed, but you needed these funds in order to make working capital payments for a whole bunch of different things so that you could try to survive. But again, the interest continues to accrue until the loan is paid in full, and the accrued interest is based upon the outstanding balance from day one. But there's no prepayment penalties. So if you do have the cash and you use the EIDL loan, sort of like an insurance policy, interest would have accrued, but there is no penalty for repayment. So if you have the funds to pay the government back, do it. But we want you to avoid a loan default. And later on in this presentation, we are going to talk about a new hardship feature. And it's going to be important for small businesses to be current on their loans in order to take advantage of that hardship feature. But, this is a debt that's owed to the government. And so there are things that could happen, again, depending on the size of the loan, as far as what SBA might be looking to do. But again, for businesses who are on this call, if you are struggling, if you are really challenged, I would suggest that you reach out to Diane Darling, Carlos Hernandez in my office, Eli Spayu, my deputy, Dan Martinello, myself. Also, we can try to help you to navigate if you are having some serious financial issues and to try to give you some guidance and the best way to deal with your specific situation. But Diane, why don't you talk about, yeah, go ahead, Diane.
Bob, I'll just add here, because this has come up in, also on the channel internally, as well as a couple of questions about the reporting to the credit bureaus. I think part of what Bob and all of us are just really trying to communicate, and we'll give you some contact information, is if there are challenges, be in touch with the customer service team, let them know what's going on. They cannot read your mind. And I think the important thing to do is just to be sure that this could impact a future loan, either with the government or a commercial loan or something else. I haven't been able to get an answer on Social Security benefits down the line, but this is just something that we're just really asking people and inviting people to take very seriously about communication and the status of this. So Bob, I can pop to the next slide in case you had something else.
No, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay.
So do you want to talk on
Sure.
the next couple slides, Dan?
I'm happy to talk to the next couple of things. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you some screenshots of what this will look like when you start going on to repay the loan. And so if for some reason you cannot find your loan note or information, most likely it is somewhere in your inbox, in your email inbox. So these loans were given to you through your email. You sign the documents, that's probably in there. And so if you haven't already, this is a time for you to maybe create a folder, a spreadsheet, some sort of way to keep track of all of these information as things are flying fast and one thing or another. So you're gonna, if for some reason you absolutely cannot find it, you can contact customer service. But most likely people are saying to me, oh yeah, it's actually in my inbox. So you will then need to create a CAFS account. This stands for the Capital Access Financial System, CAFS, not quite like baby cows, but CAFS. And so you will start there. And as some people have noted, if you are a nonprofit, you will need to maybe have to do an extra layer of this. We can talk about that separately, but you will start with the Capital Access System to create your account. This is where your loan balance will be, interest is paid, record of payments, and then there'll be a button where you can then forward on over to pay.gov and they will take your money. This is just a little bit of extra information about the Capital Access System. So if you have a 7A loan, a 504 loan, any SBA loan, this is where this is. You see here on the bottom left some information about, recommended browsers and things like that. You will be getting a copy of the slides, so we can be sharing that for you. In the bottom right, you're seeing some information about nonprofit, information about that on how to deal with that.
Yeah, so I've been on the SBA.gov/pay site, and I think it really is done well as far as walking you through the whole process, as far as setting up the CAFS account and the using pay.gov. But if you have questions, as I mentioned earlier, you do have a local team here, in addition to the Disaster Customer Service Center, who can help you out.
One thing I'll share also is that I learned this internally because I had to sign up for a Capital Access Financial System. So I understood what this looked like as an SBA contractor. And then I kind of, didn't need to be on it anymore. Well, every 90 days it sunsets. So you want to be sure that you go into your account, keep it active. You can get it reinstated, but you want to be sure you're in it every 90 days to keep your account active. So when you go onto this, there will be step-by-step instructions. You'll need your social security number, any of your loan details. Most likely you do not have an account already, or if you do, you'll go ahead and sign into that account. There's a phone number there and a disaster email. I'll read that out loud for anybody who is joining us on the phone and needs to write that down. It's 833-572-0502, or it's disaster customer service at sba.gov. So if for some reason you're having issues, go ahead and contact them. Anything else, Bob, on that?
Yeah, so the thing I wanted to mention, so if you think of the 30 months, so for the earliest EIDL borrowers, they would have received their loan in April of 2020. You add the 30 months onto that, those businesses would have had to start making some payments in October. But as it increased in activity as far as the number of approvals and businesses getting EIDL loans, what I can tell you is that December and January are the two biggest months with borrowers coming due for their initial payment after the 30 months of deferment. And that's why we're doing a lot of these to different industry groups and different chambers, because it is really starting to kick in for small businesses as far as this requirement for the first payment.
Absolutely. And so this is the time that you're doing some holiday shopping. January, the bills are going to be coming due. You want to add this one to the list. So just to be sure that you have that. When you get onto the Capital Access Financial System on a CAFS, if you have more than one loan, you'll see your loans both there, and you'll see the buttons to make payments. So this is what a screenshot will look like of that system. To the left, you'll see those little red toggles. So sometimes people will say, hey, I can't find my loan. And I'm like, okay, hit that little toggle. Oh, there's my loan. So we just added this screenshot to give people a little bit of a chance to see what it's like, behind the curtain, if you will. This is
Diane,
actually, yes.
just so when people log on, if they log on using an iPad, is that less secure?
I would discourage iPads just because it's harder to see things. It's harder to touch things, frankly. And so I just really encourage people to do this. Also, I wouldn't necessarily say that iPads are less secure, but you're going to want to be on your secure network. If you're doing this from your residence and you're on your sort of a thing, but it's just other opportunities when you go outside of that are just could cause more problems. And this is something you really don't want people to get into.
I think they really are just trying to stress it's better from a computer, not from your phone. You could access these sites through your phone, but you're not going to have the same view. So this is the suggestion that we have for you.
Yeah. This is actually a slide, Bob, we need to get taken out because this actually doesn't sadly show on the CAF system from what I understand. Maybe it's changed, but this amortization table isn't there. The one where that OFO or the Office of Field Services is saying to us is to go onto Simple Money and basically just find an amortization table there. To continue on, this is where you get to pay it. The encouragement very much is to pay this electronically, and there are ways to set up for recurring payments. So we'll go through here. You will connect it to your banking institution. You can pay it by check. One thing we are also really encouraging people to do is if by chance you are paying it by check, take the check to the post office. There are people who are diving into mailboxes these days, getting all kinds of checks, particularly at the holiday season. So you want to be sure that your check goes directly to that. Also, anytime you are on any website, you want to be sure you're on pay.gov, G-O-V, not pay.gou, or somebody else who may be appearing like they are a government site and they are not. Here's some tips and tricks that we are sharing with you. You want to be sure that if you see these errors, this may be the reason why, and this is also why we'll be sending you these slides. Some of the errors that pop up is it's not a valid social security number. You want to just be sure that you are, logging this information correctly. Refer to the COVID information that is on the SBA website. Here's a few more errors that you're seeing that pop up: error code 101, 102. These are things it may pop up, so we want people to not be surprised or feel like something's been hacked. This is how you can go ahead and make these changes. And again, contact the help desk if for some reason you have issues with CAFs. Bob, you want to talk about the servicing centers?
Well, one of the things I want to stress, you heard me mention about the huge volume of numbers. So, this is a historic program for the SBA, far exceeds anything that SBA has ever done on the disaster loan side. But so there are constantly being improvements made to different technology and different systems. But as far as the service center for those on the East Coast, for those in Massachusetts, you're going to be working with the Birmingham Service Center. That's all this slide is talking about. So it's Birmingham for us here in Massachusetts.
Great. Here's phone numbers and emails for the Birmingham Service Center. The slides will be sent to you, but here's some contact information for you, and that can help you out. By chance, we have somebody from the West Coast who's joined us this morning. It's very early for you folks. Here's the El Paso situation. If you need to by chance contact them.
So if you could back up one slide,
absolutely,
Diane. So I can't stress this enough. If there are changes occurring with your business, if you're looking to sell your business, if you're looking to sell a piece of equipment or collateral, you have to get SBA's prior approval on these things. And I think we're one of the FAQs further in the presentation, but I just wanted to stress it right now. You don't want to have to come to the SBA after the fact and say, I did this, what do I do now? Because SBA is going to look at it like it's an event of default if the business was sold without getting SBA's prior approval, if you've sold collateral without SBA's prior approval. So again, just make sure if you're doing something which is impacting guarantors or the ownership of the business or the collateral, that you're getting prior approval from the SBA.
And I'll echo that, Bob. A couple of questions that we had in the past was what happens if I have a new business partner? What happens if, I sell part of the business? If I divorce or whatever it might be, if it's a family business, there's all kinds of things that do impact this. And to Bob's point, you don't want to have this be a surprise. We're going to be giving you some contact information for our resource partners in a bit. These are people who can help you out, who are here to help you out in good days and bad days. But yes, you do definitely want to be insured. One person asked if they sell the business, can they take the proceeds of that sale to pay off the loan? This is definitely something you want to talk to the service center about. Again, going to CAFS to set up your automatic payments. This is a best situation if you can do this. If not, I encourage you to put something on your calendar and say, hey, in 2 days, my payment is due. Sometimes it's weekends, sometimes it's Saturdays. I would just very much encourage you to have that date, etched in your mind, whatever that date is. We do have the resource partners. Bob, you want to speak to this or you want me to?
Well, we can both speak to it. And so Steve and Jess, as you learn more about your members and different challenges and struggles they might be having, I just want you to know that, we have tremendous resource partners here in Massachusetts. Within the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center network, we have folks who are experienced with business turnarounds. These are folks, it's free, it's confidential. It's like having a private consultant that you don't have to pay for. So definitely, it's always best to be proactive if you are anticipating that you're going to have some struggles or some issues. Don't put your head in the sand. Communicate with the local SBA, get some assistance from our resource partners. Again, we're here to try to help you to navigate this. We want to see you survive.
Jess, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, so Diane, real quick, the SBA loan number, I have a question with how long is it?
The loan amount for me for 30 years?
The loan number.
The loan number?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's 10 digits. So
okay.
So one of the things that you need to remember is most people, they reference their loan by the application number, which through EIDL, it started with a 33. So that is not going to help you when you get into trying to set up a CAFS account or using pay.gov. You really have to have the SBA loan number.
And are there reporting requirements on the use of EIDL loan funds like there were with PPP and RRF funds?
Yeah, so I know we have a slide that will come up in a little bit. You need to keep a record of how you use the EIDL funds. You need to keep that on hand for 3 years. The EIDL money is not for business expansion, so you shouldn't be using this money to buy another business or to, we've heard different stories from folks doing different things with the money. This was working capital money so that you could meet the obligations of the business had the disaster not occurred. But you need to keep a record as far as how you use the money, because SBA might come back and ask you. There's not a process where we're going to be looking at all these things, but you want to be prepared if SBA ever does come back and say, hey, show us how you use the money.
Thank you, Bob.
And I'll echo that as well. At the moment, here's the thing. be prepared for an audit. Just be prepared for an audit. You know, I did a program recently for the employee retention credits. People are probably getting emails about this all over the place. I get 1 or 2 texts myself on my phone. You know, you could get this $26,000. These are things that you do want to keep, you know, good reporting on what you did with these funds, because it's just a whole lot easier for you to figure out how to say, hey, here's what I did with it versus, oh, let me figure this out in hindsight. I'll just echo again, all these resource partners I happen to oversee, in my humble opinion, one of the best in Massachusetts, the Southeast one. They're all terrific. They're all terrific, and they all have excellent experience. They do have experience in helping businesses shut down if that's the situation. Turnarounds are possible for sure. They have some excellent people there. So be sure to reach out to these resource partners and have them be sure to help you out. Hardship, Bob. You can talk about this.
Yeah, so this is something that is a brand new feature. So when a small business goes into their CAFS account, if they're eligible, they will see a hardship feature button. So this hardship feature, what it does is it for 6 months, it temporarily reduces your regular monthly payment down to as low as 10% of what the regular monthly payment would have been. So if your monthly payment is $1,000, if you request the hardship, it would bring it down to $100. It can't be less than 25. 25 is the minimum that SBA would go as far as the payment under a hardship. But what small businesses should know is that for loans that are $200,000 or less, it's basically an automatic process. They'll go into their CAFS account, request the hardship feature. You get 6 months worth of relief at the lower payment. If you are a business who received a loan of greater than $200,000, you do need to request a hardship, it would have to be made outside of your portal and CAFS account. So you would be contacting the Disaster Birmingham Center directly, requesting some relief and a hardship for a larger SBA loan. But you don't want to use this if you don't need to use it now. But if you do need some help, it's going to be available to you. You have to be current in order to request a hardship. So if you are not current on your loan, you're not going to see that button because you're not eligible for the hardship. But again, this is something that is brand new. The feature just went live within, it might be the last week to 2, but this is something we know that all businesses are not recovering at the same speed. And there are some businesses out there who are going to need some extra help beyond the 30 months worth of deferment. We're not going to do any additional automatic deferments. I think we've made that clear, but this hardship feature is something that could help you. And you don't have to do it immediately. So this is something that you could request, say, a year down the road, but it provides you with 6 months worth of payment relief at reduced payment amounts.
And Bob, one thing I'll share with you, I learned from Texas the other day was that you can't ask for this if your payments aren't coming up for 6 months. It's a 60-day window. So you don't want to say, Jay, in 6 months, I'm going to have a hardship. You know, it needs to be a little bit more close to the date.
Right. So as we talked about, interest accrues on this debt. So under a hardship, if you're only making a payment of 10% of what the regular monthly payment would be, it's the money's going to accrue unpaid interest in most likelihood. So it's not going to reduce the principal balance. The accrued unpaid interest will actually grow further because you're not making a full monthly payment. So it'll just increase your balloon at the end of the 30 years. But I think it's important to know, you know, how the accrued interest works. You know, this is something that is potentially helpful to you for short-term relief, but interest would accrue on the outstanding principal balance.
You want me to take this, Bob, or?
Yeah, so I think we can go through these pretty quick because we've talked about it.
Yeah.
They're not going to be forgiven. And we've talked a lot about the interest being
Yeah.
accrued.
Yeah, so, just to kind of repeat what we've been saying, these will not be forgiven and the interest is accruing. Um, Instructions, these will be sent to you as well, but, if by chance it is a nonprofit, as Jess and Steve can talk about, because they had to deal with this, is creating a company letterhead, letting us know the information and the social security number of the person who should have access. If it is for profit, it'll be pretty straightforward. We talked about the proceeds, this is what it's for: operating capital, payroll, rent, other business, expenses. This is not to go ahead and, decide you want to have a new building or something along those lines. The deferment was 30 months from the initial note. And so if you got a increase later on, it still goes back to the initial date of the loan.
Yeah, and one of the changes that SBA made along the way with EIDL is that you could use the EIDL proceeds to pay down business debt or to make payments. So that's certainly something that is an eligible use of proceeds.
No prepayment penalties. So, hey, if you win the lottery, if grandma gives you a bunch of cash saying thank you for, opening a restaurant in my name, you can go ahead and use that to pay the loan off early. If you have other loans, with us, they are separated. They are not consolidated. If you can't make payments, as Bob has discussed, go ahead and contact the servicing centers and then maybe consider the hardship button there. You can get copies of your loan documents, or for some reason you cannot find them. There was somebody yesterday, she said to me, well, wait a minute, I've got my loan document in the Vermont, SBA told me this was going to be forgiven, and, up to 150,000. After a little bit more, she goes, oh, this is my PPP document. So, look at these documents carefully, be sure you're looking at the correct ones. If you look to sell, close your business, definitely be in touch with the servicing centers. Keep copies of your tax returns, financial records. If this is not your sweet spot, very few people decide to open a pizza restaurant because they really want to keep track of their financial records. Maybe get a SCORE SBDC counselor to have somebody help you understand what are some good ways for you to keep track of your documents. I think if there's something that I joined the SBA as a COVID hire, because my business went off a cliff. And so, one thing that we all learn in this process is, keeping track of documents is not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but this is a chance for you to maybe do a little bit of housekeeping and be sure that you have access to that information. Getting your loan payoff amount, if you want to pay it all off, it's available in the CAF system. Here's where you can make some payments. Definitely, be sure you're adding in the interest if you are by chance making it, by snail mail. Are most encouraging people to do this, virtually through, electronic payment.
Diane, I have a question about the CAP account. Would they have set one up when seeking the loan initially?
I don't believe so, Bob.
No, but they might have set one up, at
As a
some
business.
point. And so if there's one out there, they could, request an update to a password if they're having problems getting into the account.
Yeah. Bob, do you want to talk a little bit more about liens and all of that?
So the thing that you need to know is that SBA is not going to be filing the UCC terminations. You're going to get the document. It's your responsibility to go get it filed and recorded so that it's clear on the that SBA has released or has released a partial release of a piece of collateral. So, but we're not going to be doing the physical recording. This is a national program, millions of borrowers. You will get you the termination, the UCC termination. It's going to be your responsibility to get it recorded and filed.
Great. If the UCC filing number is incorrect, contact the disaster center. And probably if you hear me saying something once, you'll say contact the disaster center. That's the winning prize on Jeopardy. So go ahead, and as you see here, the SBA, as Bob just said, does not send these out, so you should be in touch to figure out whatever information you need. I'll stop sharing and we can see if there's any other questions, and happy to see how we can be helpful to everybody.
Right now, it looks like all of our questions have been answered. The question I got a few times, again, this will be available, the recording will be available, and we will send it out again. If there are any other questions, I'll just give folks another minute.